Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Darshan. So today we'll be talking a bit about sex education. So first of all, can you introduce yourself?
I'm Soysa. I am currently doing my Masters in Gender and Development Studies in the University of Melbourne. And I used to work with YWCF Sri Lanka, Young Women's Christian Association, and with an organization called YP Sri Lanka. I'm also an advisor for Frida Young Feminist Fund, where we provide funding for young feminist organizations around the world to carry out their work related to sexual and reproductive health and rights.
As far as sexual education goes, how do you think it tackles things such as abuse and sexual harassment? Because you see, things such as like talking to a person is not effectively at the end of the day going to take any practical approach towards things such as abuse. However, what are the other ways it can affect it?
So in Sri Lanka, there is no comprehensive sexuality education in schools. That means there's no formal education. So what we do is informal education, which is out of school sexual and reproductive health education. So if there is comprehensive sexuality education in schools, it has to be age appropriate. And you asked how it can deal with violence. So for an example, if it's a grade 1 student, for grade 1 or 2 kids, we can talk about good touch and bad touch, what is safe and what is not safe, how to keep yourself clean, what to tell your parents, stuff like that. So in that way, we can tackle a lot of abuse because children will then start speaking out and complaining their parents if something happens.
So basically, we're in the modern era where everything is accessible in the internet. So in a scenario like this, do you think that schools should step in more early, and what exactly should they be teaching the children? About what things? And at what age? Is there a general trend in what age they should learn certain things?
It is great to have the internet, and there's a lot of information out there, but the problem is that with the internet is when it comes to sexual health or information related to sexual reproductive health, most of the time young people get inaccurate information through the internet because everything is up there, so you can access accurate information or maybe inaccurate information. So the best thing is for schools to step in and to provide proper training to teachers and for parents as well, so that they're aware like how to talk to children, what kind of responses we can expect, and how to tackle issues, how to be empathic, and how to be non-judgmental, stuff like that. So when you look at the internet, like a young person cannot figure out what is correct or what is not correct, and most of the time they ask their peers, and the peers have the same knowledge. Like if I ask one of my friends, I may have the same knowledge, but I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for them to get into a lot of myths and misconceptions and learn wrong things and get into wrong practices. And I mean, for an example, if we talk about using a condom correctly and consistently, it is very hard to find something. Maybe there are educational programs, but in the internet, most of the time, children look at porn or stuff like that. So it's very important for schools to take this up and provide accurate information.
Right. Going to a more interesting aspect that many of our younger viewers would like to hear about, and parents, definitely parents. But if you see, every family there is the thing where parents are supposed to give the talk, the birds and the bees talk. Now, although my father has yet to come and give me this talk, what exactly do you think that parents should include in such a speech or such a conversation, if you think it should be a conversation? And how should it be exactly progressing with time?
See, this is what we should change. In a country like Sri Lanka, with all the cultural and religious influences, sex is a taboo topic. So there's very less conversation in families related to sexual and reproductive health and rights. But I personally believe just as much the responsibility should go to parents, just as much as it goes to teachers or the school. So I think parents should get education or training like along with the teacher training. For an example, if there is comprehensive sexuality education in schools, there should be a teacher's manual and a parent's manual, so that the parents will know what to talk to their children, to do some exercises at home, talk freely about it, and change their attitudes and perceptions as well. This has been very hard, and lots of young people do not talk to their parents. But if they have the opportunity or the ability to talk to their parents, there'll be a lot of less stress, and they'll be more comfortable, and they can expose and they can discuss, and most of the time parents are more closer to their children, and they could guide them or discuss openly and see what's best for them.
If you look at something like abortion, how do you think we should tackle it? If you take countries such as Sri Lanka, you would see that we actually do not allow abortion to take place. So how do you think we should tackle such things? And what is your personal opinion about it?
Abortion is a very controversial topic, and not only in Sri Lanka, there's a lot of discussion and lots of issues when it comes to abortion. But what I can tell you what I personally believe in. And abortion, you can talk about abortion as a right of a woman. It is a woman's reproductive or sexual reproductive right to get an abortion. But when we look at the situation in Sri Lanka, the law related to abortion is it's restricted. So a person can only get an abortion if the mother's life is in danger. Not under rape, not under incest, not under no other circumstances would allow an abortion in Sri Lanka. But still, there are more than 750 abortions taking place every day in Sri Lanka. So every day 750 or more. This is just the reported number. And these abortions are most of the time unsafe abortions, and a lot of young people access these services. So there's a lot of health, a threat to their health, a threat to their psychological, physical, social health, and so I personally think that abortion laws should be relaxed in the country, but we have a long way to go with. I think we should start with comprehensive sexuality education, so people will have more knowledge on what are rights, what are women's sexual and reproductive health rights. And then we can talk about abortion, and then parents, teachers, everybody will have a better understanding on the whole thing.
So, moving on to a more important question when it comes to many developing nations, in my opinion. When you see in many developing nations, the amount of education, sexual education that's actually given to each gender differs. And the amount of access to resources for each gender also differs. So, in what terms does it currently lack in many nations, and how do you think it should change in the future?
Well, as we discussed before, there's no discussion on sexual and reproductive health and rights at school or at home. So most of the time it's women or girls who are affected by this situation, because boys, they always talk about it with their friends and they have access to internet. But most of the time when we look at girls, or especially rural girls or girls in war affected areas, it's very difficult for them to access services openly because of the taboo. There are youth-friendly health centers in every hospital in Sri Lanka, but most of the time young people, especially young women, do not access those services. The reason is maybe the service provider is an older person, so young people really do not want to go to that person and access information, or they don't have accurate new information, updated information. So I think and also when you look at negotiation, young women, especially young women, have have less ability to negotiate. For example, if you talk about condom use, negotiating to use a condom, it doesn't normally happen in most of the relationships. From what I have experienced, from the stories I have heard from young women, that's what they say. It's very difficult to negotiate a condom, because then it fires back at them with the trust issue. Don't you trust me? So then the trust issue comes up. So then they eventually give up and say it's okay. So the negotiation, access to information, access to services, when it is a young woman, all these are, it's very difficult for them to access these things. So there is, of course, a difference between men and women when it comes to accessing sexual and reproductive health services and information.
So now let's talk about you. What are the projects you're doing around the world? We would like to hear more about you.
Well, in Sri Lanka, we had an interesting project a couple of years back, and it's still going on. I worked with the Young Women's Christian Association, and this was the first time a faith-based organization was willing to work on sexual and reproductive health rights in the country. So we had, I'll just explain the project briefly because it's kind of important, and it was such a good practice that lots of people are willing to adopt the whole system. So we trained young women who are partnered with Young Women's Christian Association around the country in Sinhala and Tamil medium on sexual and reproductive health and rights, and we trained them to be peer educators. So we expected them to go to their communities and then conduct sessions and then report back to us and then discuss and have that kind of a conversation going in their communities. And also, most importantly, we involved the gatekeepers of the area, like the MOH, the principals, the lawyers in the area, and also the parents. So the parents and the gatekeepers were aware of this program. So these people are talking about sexual and reproductive health and rights, but they are trained and they have the capacity to talk about it. So they were also supportive, because in rural communities it could be very problematic to talk about a subject like sex. But because of this, this structure of the project, it was easier for young women to talk. So they spoke up and they are involved with us with advocacy work. They spoke in media and they came out. They did a lot of training programs. So this is one of the projects that I was involved with, and it's still going on. So yeah, that would be one. And at the moment, I'm studying in Australia, and I'm doing a project with the YWCA of Australia, where we're trying to strengthen YWCA's and these young women's sexual and reproductive health rights projects in countries, in Asian countries at the moment, to provide more funding and to give them more opportunities to travel to other countries and get exposure and share experiences like that. Yeah. So at the moment we are doing this project. There's a document called Beijing Platform for Action. Sri Lanka is a signatory country. Sri Lanka has signed this Beijing Platform for Action, and we are reviewing it every year in New York at the Commission of the Status of Women to see how much we have achieved in Sri Lanka. So sexual and reproductive health and rights and young women's rights, education, health, everything is there in this document. But there has not been, young people are not involved in this process. I mean, reviewing this document to see how much we have achieved. So what we're trying to do at the moment is to get young people and youth networks and youth organizations involved and go through this document and see what they want to say and get an outcome statement and present it at the CSW this year. So that's the project that I'm currently working on.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.